Welcome to session 2 of the From Rebel to Hope training. Today's session is all about grief, listening, and emotional expression, 3 things that people often struggle with after trauma. As I guide you through this session, I'm going to focus on why we do each activity, because understanding the purpose behind them will help you lead with confidence and insight. One of the most important things to remember about early trauma recovery is that people need simple, safe ways to connect with their emotions. When feelings are ignored or pushed down, they always come out somewhere else, in the body, in behavior, or in relationships. Everything we do today helps participants begin recognizing, naming, and expressing emotions in a way that feels safe and manageable. For this session, you'll need the listening skit roll cards. You'll need the deep breathing audio file, which you're going to send to the participants at the end of the class session. To start class, you'll begin by welcoming everyone and reminding them that we're here to learn tools that help integrate what's happening around us into our bodies and our minds. Then you'll ask how deep breathing went, how doing their stress reduction activities went. These questions aren't just small talk. They help people reflect on their week, which strengthens emotional awareness and builds confidence in their ability to use the tools. You'll do a quick review of last week, letting the participants list anything they remember. Why do we do these reviews weekly? Repetition helps people retain information and feel safer. After trauma, attention, memory, and focus can be disrupted. Reviewing gently helps participants anchor the learning and be reminded of things they've forgotten over the week. Okay, in this next activity, we're going to do a listening skit. This is one of the most impactful activities we'll do during the curriculum. It gives people permission to relax, laugh a little, and engage without pressure, while still learning something meaningful. Just as importantly, this activity moves people out of the passive learning posture where they're just sitting and listening to us talk. Instead of being spoken at, participants get to actively take part in the learning process by acting, observing, and engaging with the material. For most people, this makes the lesson easier to understand, easier to remember, and easier to apply in real life. At the same time, the skit is grounded in something really real. Listening is not just a personality trait people are born with. It's a skill we have to practice. Most people believe they are good listeners, yet we all have habits that actually shut people down, especially when someone is sharing something painful. In trauma-informed work, we often can't fix the problem, but we can offer people the experience of truly being heard. That experience alone can reduce distress and foster connection. This skit helps make our listening habits visible so people can recognize their own habits and learn a simple, practical alternative they can use in everyday life. Okay, so to begin the skit, we're going to set up 2 chairs at the front of the room. One chair is for the person who's going through a difficult situation, and the other is for the friends who will come to visit one by one. You'll choose someone to be the person going through the hard time. Have them choose something that's been really hard for them in this past week. It could be something real, it could be something they make up. It can be anything from, I felt sick this week, yesterday my dog died, I got in a small car accident. Then you'll tell them that one by one, friends will come to their house and ask how they're doing. They'll respond to the friends by telling them the thing that's going on, and the friends will respond by being a certain type of listener. You'll then assign the roles to the other members of the group. Choose 6 people in your group to each be one of the listening roles, so 1 per person. If the group is literate, you can hand out the slips of paper with various listening roles on them found in the facilitator packet. If not, you and a co-facilitator can quietly whisper the roles to people individually. The important thing is that these roles are not explained out loud to the group ahead of time. They're meant to be discovered through the interaction itself. Each role represents a common listening habit that most of us fall into without even realizing it. Once the skit begins, the person with the problem stays seated, and each listener comes up one at a time, asks what's wrong, and then responds according to their assigned role. I let this unfold naturally. Often there's laughter, there's awkwardness, there's discomfort, but that's the part of the learning. The goal here is contrast. By experiencing unhelpful listening in a light, interactive way, participants can actually feel how isolating or discouraging it can be when someone isn't truly present with us. After all the participants have played their roles, you will step in as a facilitator to play the role of the good listener. You'll sit down, you'll face the person, you'll show with your body language that you are fully present by making eye contact, by nodding, by not interrupting, and allowing pauses. You will ask the 3 questions: what happened? How did you feel? What was the most difficult part for you? You're not going to give advice. You don't spiritualize the response. You don't share your own story. So it will look something like this. Hey, Sarah, how are you? And she'll say something like, I'm not great. And you'll say, what happened? And then she'll tell you what happened. And you can say something like, oh my gosh, Sarah, that sounds hard. How did you feel when that happened? And she'll explain to you some of the thoughts she had or emotions she experienced. And you'll say, I am so sorry that happened. What was the hardest part of that for you? And she'll go into the hardest part. Often that question stirs something much deeper that the participant hadn't even named yet. These 3 questions are simple, easy to remember, and incredibly powerful. They help the person tell their story, name their emotions, and identify the deepest point of pain, all while feeling respected and heard. After the skit, you'll take time to debrief. You'll ask the person who shared the problem how it felt to be listened to by each type of listener, ending with the good listener. Then invite the participants to spend maybe 1 quiet minute considering which listener they tend to be in real life. The goal here is not self-criticism, but awareness. Finally, you'll ask them what stood out or surprised you about the skit. Remember, the debriefing time is incredibly important. Next, you'll have participants pair up and share 1 high and 1 low from the week with each other. When they share the low, they're going to practice the 3 listening questions. What happened? How did you feel? And what was the hardest part? And when they're sharing their high, what was the best part? Here's why this matters. Many people have never truly been listened to. They're used to being interrupted, preached at, compared, or dismissed. These 3 questions help people tell a piece of their story in a simple, structured, emotionally safe way. They also teach the listener to stay present without trying to fix anything. This creates connection, reduces shame, and gently introduces emotional expression, which is essential for trauma recovery. It's best to show an example if you're able to. Have either a co-facilitator or one of the participants come up. Ask, what was a high or something enjoyable that happened to you this week? Then after they share what happened, how did you feel when that happened? Then you can ask, what was the best part? After they share, ask what was a low or something hard that happened during the week. Again, when they share what happened, you can say, wow, that sounds hard. How did that feel? And then, I'm so sorry. What was the hardest part? After you provide this example, then you can let the class break into 2s and they can practice with a partner. We're going to do this exercise every week. There's a reason for this. The more practice they get as a good listener in these groups, it increases the likelihood that they will use these skills to create spaces of healthy listening and processing in their community when they leave. Then after the skit, we're going to move into deep breathing. Today, you're going to lead 8 rounds of deep breathing, but this time we're going to add some phrases. During the in-breath, you as the facilitator will say, I receive your peace. Then you'll pause, and as they breathe out, I give you my burdens. Adding these simple, calming statements help connect breath to meaning. It allows participants to release tension in both the mind and body at the same time. If you're leading a group in Arabic and want to hear how we translated those statements, go ahead and listen to the deep breathing audio file. Repetition is intentional here. Every week, we reinforce this tool so it becomes something the body can access automatically in moments of fear or stress. At the end of today's session, you'll send the deep breathing audio file. This helps participants practice at home and is a resource they can provide to others in their community. Now you're going to shift to the story of Jesus, Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. The reason the story is here at this point in the curriculum is because it gives participants permission to grieve. It shows a moment where Jesus himself wept. Jesus didn't hide his grief, silence it, or minimize it. This is incredibly important for participants who believe grief is weakness or who have been taught to stay strong or to hide their emotions. The Lazarus story gently challenges those beliefs by showing that even Jesus experienced deep sadness and that grief is a natural part of love and loss. It also shows that Jesus expressed his grief publicly, not just around safe people. You can either play the audio file or tell the story yourself, whichever you prefer. After the story, you ask the same 4 questions. What did you like? What was hard to understand or accept about the story? How can the story help me emotionally? And who else might benefit from hearing this story? Next, we move into an activity focused on grief. We do this because grief is deeply personal and often misunderstood. Many people don't just grieve their loss, they also carry expectations about how they're supposed to grieve. In the story we just read, we saw that even Jesus experienced grief and wept, reminding us that grief is not a sign of weakness or lack of faith. It is a human response to loss. Most of us absorb beliefs about grief from our culture, our families, our faith communities. Some learn that they should be strong and not show emotion. Others believe grief should have a timeline, or that staying busy is healthier than feeling the pain, or that moving on means forgetting. While these beliefs are often well-intentioned, they can add shame, confusion, and pressure and make the grieving process even harder. This activity is a gentle, interactive way to bring those beliefs into the open. Instead of sitting and listening, participants are going to engage by reflecting for themselves and then physically moving in the room. So we're going to set one side of the room as true and the other side as false. And then we'll read common statements about grief. Participants will then move to the side that matches what they believe. So if you read a statement and they think, I think that's true, they're going to move to that side of that room. And if they think, no, that's false, they're going to move to that side of the room. Then you'll invite people from different places in the room to share why they chose that spot. Sometimes people will stand in the middle, signaling, I think it's kind of true and also kind of false, or I'm not sure, that's great. You can get their feedback as well for why they chose that location. What's powerful here is that even within the same culture or faith background, people often stand in very different places, and that helps normalize how grief can look. As we walk through the statements, we gently clarify that there's no single right way to grieve, that grief doesn't follow a set timeline, that expressing emotion is healthy, and that avoiding grief can prolong it or allow it to manifest in our bodies as pain or sickness, and that moving on does not mean forgetting. Afterward, we'll bring the group back together, and again, we'll reflect on what stood out by that exercise or what felt surprising. In the end, participants usually leave with more clarity, less shame, and a deeper understanding that grief is personal, unpredictable, and worthy of grace, both for themselves and others. For homework this week, you're going to invite participants to gently continue the work they started in the group by using the grief progression page in their packet. The reason you give this as homework is not to push people to relive painful memories, but to help them practice slowing down and putting into words their experience in a safe, private way. Many people carry grief or anger without ever having language for it, and naming what happened or how it felt is often the first step towards healing. On the grief progression page, participants will see the same 3 questions they practiced earlier in the listening skit. What happened? How did you feel? What was the hardest part? You'll encourage them to choose one event from their past that involved grief or anger. It can be something recent or something from long ago. There's no pressure to pick the biggest story in their life. The goal is simply to begin noticing and naming what's there. Participants can respond or do this in whatever way feels most comfortable for them. They can write, they can draw, they can audibly record themselves speaking through the questions. What matters is not how the story is told, but that they begin to acknowledge the painful parts of their experience. They won't be asked to share this with anyone. This exercise is just for them, and that sense of safety and privacy is important. You'll also find an emotions chart included in the packet to support this process. Many people know something hurts, but struggle to identify what they're actually feeling. The chart can help participants find words for their emotions without needing to figure it out on their own. If they find the exercise helpful, they're welcome to repeat it with other experiences from their life as many times as they'd like. You can frame this homework with the reminder that the more we allow ourselves to gently bring emotions to the surface, the more we create space for healing, emotionally, mentally, physically. Avoidance may feel easier in the short term, but understanding and naming our feelings helps us move forward with greater clarity and compassion. In addition to the reflection exercise, participants will also find another stress reduction tool in their packet. Just like in the first week, they're invited to fill in the boxes by completing activities and circling them or coloring them, reminding them to focus on the deep breathing squares if possible. You'll also send an audio file with 5 minutes of calming music and the simple prompts, I receive your peace, I give you my burdens. You'll encourage participants to listen to this at night before sleeping and practice their deep breathing as a way to help their bodies settle and rest. To close the session, ask if there are any questions, confirm next week's meeting time, and pray briefly, thanking God for showing us through the Lazarus story that grief is normal and that God meets us in our sadness. As you lead this session, my prayer is that you'll be a calm and compassionate guide as participants take brave steps into their grief. I'll see you next week for session 3.